I tried this video a few times and I was talking about how great you are and that you have these books. So yeah, I'm Kaylin Green, for those who do not know who I am. I met Andrea through, we did a broadcast, we did an interview with Fox 9 about how social media can be used as a great tool, because I think that a lot of the public is painting it as this like evil tool right now. So we both saw value in it and we are talking about the benefits of it. So that's how we met. And we stayed in contact and found out that we have a lot in common. My mom passed away almost 8 years ago now, and struggled with that for years. And Andrea, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself and your impressive background?
Yes, thank you, Kaylin. Impressive background. I don't know if what fate gives us is always impressive, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm Andrea Easton. I have authored 2 books. It sounds like Kaylin has talked to you about them. The New Normal has been trademarked, so I have subtitles for all of my books. The first one being The Life of Grief, the second one being Journaling Grief. My story starts back in 2009 when my husband died. He was diagnosed with a rare cancer caused by Agent Orange that was not treatable, curable, or operable. He was given 3 to 6 months, give or take, at that time, but died 10 weeks later. Very devastating part of my life, changed my life forever. And what I decided to do with it is go back to school and get my master's in clinical mental health counseling to help other people through their journey of grief. It's not always what we choose, but when you're handed something like this, if you can find a silver lining, which I feel like I have, helping other people is really beneficial for me. So today we're going to talk about how to stop some of the downward spirals in any grief situation. I feel like self-care is the first one to talk about because it's an important aspect in our life every day. It's extremely important when you're grieving. Doing something nice for yourself, even the littlest thing, can change how you feel. Self-care is important because you are being tested on every level right now. It's not always easy to think of treating yourself during a time like this, but if you can think of it as medicinal, allowing yourself to escape even for a minute, put aside any of the feelings of being selfish or self-indulgent. You need to be able to function for the other responsibilities in your life. It truly is about taking care of yourself, filling your cup so that you can face the daily challenges every day that you need to, not only for yourself, but those that are in your life. It's like when you're in an airplane and they say, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on someone else. Fill your cup up first before you fill someone else's up. Because without filling yours up, you won't be able to fill someone else's up.
And I can totally relate to that, because after I started working on my journey with grief, I could tell that others around me were healthier and happier. And I was like, oh, it really does, that there is a real science behind helping yourself first. So what do you do for self-care? Can you give us an example of what do you do when you're I'm in a really bad funk, what do I need to do for myself?
I'm a big journaler, which is going to be my next topic. But other than journaling, I do meditation and working out. I mean, getting outside is one of the healthiest things that we can do for ourselves. The fresh air, the sunshine when it's shining, but even the fresh air, it's, yeah, today it's kind of gray, but even the fresh air just helps change your mood. It truly does. Yeah. So that's kind of what I do on a daily basis.
And taking a nap for me sometimes, taking a nap.
Yeah. Yes, that can be. So let's talk about journaling next. Something I've done all my life. I cannot tell you how beneficial it is. And most people are uncomfortable with it. My journal kind of gives you prompts. So my second book that Kaylin talked about gives you prompts. So it explains what I'm talking about as far as trigger points. And then it gives you little prompts on how to figure out what you're going to write about. When you're journaling, just remember there are no rules. Journaling allows you to get it out of your head. Think it is kind of a safe place to express your unresolved feelings, a spontaneous outpouring of your conscious. Don't think about what's going on to the paper. Just write, and use a no grammar policy. who cares if it's spelled correctly? No one's going to read it. I have given girlfriends direct instructions on where all of my journals are in my house for them to get rid of them if anything ever happens to me.
That's actually brilliant. That's a good idea.
Uh-huh. Yep. Your family doesn't always need to know what's in your journal, girl. No. The next thing I want to touch base on is the reality of grief. People often think that you are okay after the first 2 weeks, and that's so wrong. This is usually when you start to need the people that have gone away, because the busy work starts to go away and the reality of it sets in a little deeper. The unfortunate thing is people think that their life is business as usual, so nothing has changed in yours, but everything has changed in yours. I am truly thankful for 2 friends in my life who called me for the 2 months after Michael's death every day, morning and night. They didn't care if I was crying, laughing, sitting in silence. They would battle on about things sometimes, but truly, it was the most beneficial thing I could ever do. I can't tell them enough how important those 2 months were for me. But if you can be this person for someone who is in need, truly beneficial for them. And you will feel some sort of reward by just doing this because you're helping that person in a way that you don't even know. The other thing is being brave at times like this is hard and necessary. You know, one of the things that they tell you to do is to continue to go to all of your appointments that you have scheduled. And that's some of the hardest things to do, is to keep an appointment because you don't want to face anyone. You want to sit home in your sadness. And you just want your feelings to be your feelings. Going out and doing what you need to do is part of your journey in grieving. It's part of getting through. And I'm not saying do this the day after, although the day after you do have to do some things. But I don't care what it is, just make yourself do it, even if you come home after and have a tissue full box day. And what I mean by that is let your feelings out. Because if you don't, if you hold on to that sadness, it's just going to hurt you in other health ways. So really being brave is all about you doing what you need in the moment. Trigger points is another thing that I think is huge when it comes to grief and a downward spiral. These are things that set you off and spin you into any stage of grief. Doesn't matter if you've been through that stage before, you might hit it again. And grief isn't linear, so you're going to hit the stages again and again. It can be a sensitive subject, a situation, or an area that relates to something that has affected you in the past. It's something that reminds you of the loss. Perhaps it is caused by hearing the same words as you were originally affected by grief. These reminders of the trauma will continue to affect you until you identify it and deal with them. For me, it was the ambulance. I was driving home from work 2 months after Michael died, and I was on the phone with someone, and an ambulance went by with the light on, but no noise, which means that they're transporting someone, not always alive, or someone home to hospice. Brought back the memory of Michael coming home on his last day, and the person on the other end of the phone told me I needed to get over it. This was 2 months after his death. It was the hardest thing for me to do. And today I can finally look at an ambulance and not think anything of it. But these are the things I'm talking about, guys. These are the trigger points that really do affect you. And it can affect you down the road if you don't deal with it today.
And so how do you find it in your heart to love that person or accept that person and not hate that person that told you to get over it? Because for me, a lot of people said a lot of really dumb things when I was grieving, and I still am trying to find love in my heart for those people, because I'm grateful that they have not experienced grief in a way that I have. But some of the words they say, how do you get over that? What do you have to say to those people? Or is it just lack of education? How can you help people understand that what you're saying is not okay?
Right. That's one of the hardest things, because people really are uneducated when it comes to grief. They're uncomfortable. You and what they don't realize, Kaylin, is that it's more uncomfortable for us than it is for them. We are sometimes the experience that they get to see and take into their life. But you have to forgive, because here's why. It helps you, not them. Forgiveness is never about the other person. It's about allowing ourselves to be free from that emotion. And you just have to understand that people who make insensitive comments don't understand that what they're saying to you hits a chord that they have never experienced. And one thing isn't the same as the other. I had an old assistant of mine tell me that someone's divorce was worse than my husband's grief. And I literally thought, they're not in the same realm. They are both grief, of course, but they're not in the same realm.
Wow.
So you just find it in yourself to forgive them, because it does you more harm if you carry it.
Yeah, for sure. So, so triggers, I can relate to that 100%, because for me, I was trying when I was doing my live videos, they're like, they're deleted now, but I was saying that for me, grandparents, like seeing grandparents with their grandkids triggers me a lot, because I like want that for my kids. I want my kids to have my mom around, and for years I just would tear up and I would get angry and I would like go through all the emotions. So how do you work through a trigger in that moment? Like, do you have to like sit down and write it down? Do you, like, if you're driving in your car or if you're at work and you're like, I have to find a way to work through this trigger, like, what are there some tools that can kind of like reset your brain, or to focus on, so that you can keep moving forward throughout the day? Or do you have any tricks?
Well, one trick is I was taught to put it in an imaginary box up in my car somewhere when I went into work. So say I was on my way to work and one of the triggers really hit me, and I had a full 8 hours ahead of me yet. So imagine that I have a sunroof. So I would always imagine tucking it right into the sunroof and saying, okay, this is what's really irritating me right now, but I can't deal with it because I got to go focus on work. And I'll pick it up when I come back. 9 times out of 10, you don't ever think about it when you come back,
Okay.
because something else is going to take place of that, whether it's a thought about what went on in the day or a phone call. So it's usually a positive spin, but it allows you that freedom. Another example is putting it in a backpack and kind of putting that backpack in the corner, so that you mentally take it out of your mind. The other thing with triggers is you really have to identify them. And so journaling is one of the biggest things, because you can look back and you can see what it is. One of my biggest trigger points is seeing couples who are elderly. And I don't mean like just 5 years older than me, but people in their, 80s and late 70s and 80s who still have their partner. And that's a real trigger for me, because I don't feel like I got enough life with my husband, but I do appreciate what I did have with him. But I just have to kind of go, oh, they're so lucky, and just.
That's one thing that I really enjoyed in your book, was like looking at the other side of it. So like the yin and the yang. So yeah, you can look at it and say, wow, I'm really fortunate that I have friends that have grandparents, and like they have such a healthy relationship with their grandparents. Or, like just looking at the different side of it, like, well, okay, so I'm envious of the grandparents that they have, but they have a terrible relationship with their sister, or, and I have a great relationship with my sister. So like, you can't, compare all the time. Like you said, it's not always the same. But I like that. And yeah, in the book, that's what you talked about, is like trying to find the silver lining in it, and like really working through, like, so when you see that, couple, you're saying, wow, that's really beautiful in this world. That's just like so rare, instead of saying, well, I want that. Like, I needed that, like, and have this like jealous, like, that's what I had when I saw grandparents. I had this jealous, like, hurt in my heart. But yeah, so I like that you talked about like finding the silver lining and like looking at it differently, and really retraining your brain to see things in a different way.
Yeah, because otherwise you just go throughout life being mad and angry, and life shouldn't be that way.
And
You have to find a silver lining
um,
through everything.
one thing, so one of my friends, I don't think she could be on here live, but she was asking, well, I guess we kind of covered it. She was saying, like, you know, when people say get over it, like, how do you respond, or like when people judge your grief,
Mhm.
how do you respond? How do you not take that in and like not let that get to you and fester? Or do you just kind of have to like ignore it? Is there like some witty responses you have for when people are like, get over it? It's been so long.
Right. That is a tough one because at a month, I had a girlfriend's boyfriend at the time tell me I needed to get on Match because I wasn't getting any younger.
Ew.
And I was like, seriously? And so the only thing is I have said to people, I do get over it every day. I wake up and I move on with my life. And that is truly getting over it because you never get over it. You get through it. And it's just how you choose to get through it. It's not an easy process. It's not a day. It's not going to be gone in a day. And it does take time. And everyone's journey is different. And I'll tell you, there's months where I'm really good, but then there's months when something will hit me. And usually anniversary dates are really a trigger point, and you don't even have to know it. I just celebrated 12 years of Mike's diagnosis last Friday. And I was like, why am I so irritable today? And then I looked at the date and I'm like, oh, that's why. Because today we found out. And the crazy thing is he called my parents and he called my family and his family and told all of them. And then we sat and we talked about the rest of our life together. So
Oh.
it's,
So all
mm-hmm,
those emotions come rushing back. Yep. Oh.
mm-hmm, yes.
Yeah, so it's not something you get over. So like how do you
You
explain
get
that?
through it.
Yeah, how do you explain that to someone who's never experienced grief? Like is there a good like analogy or a way to like explain to them like this isn't something like you stub your toe and now it's better. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, all these like ups and downs and
Well, you can explain to them that your relationship wasn't built in the day.
hmm.
And so your grief isn't going to be gone in a day. And really dealing with grief is how big you want to react. Well, that isn't the right way to say it. I guess I'm sorry. It is how you are dealing with it is truly how you felt about this person. Sometimes it's truly the love of your life. It's your big love. Sometimes it's resentment. Sometimes it's an issue that you hadn't dealt with. So all of those things can affect how you get through it and how long it takes. And people will not understand that. And you can be really honest with them. I think that is the best way to be. And when you are honest with them, if they can't be more sensitive moving forward, you don't need them in your life because you really do have to pick your village during a time like this.
Yes, I would agree with that so wholeheartedly. Yes. Surround yourself with
Mm-hmm.
good people. That is so important. Um,
I call it my blanket fort tribe. The one that you want in that tent with you that is not going to make you mad. They're going to understand. And it's not a woe is me because everyone needs something different when they're grieving.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always tell people like it's okay to be sad and it's okay to be like even with like depression or just bad days, like it's okay to be
Mm-hmm.
sad and to like have those feelings and emotions, but it's not okay to live there. Like because
No.
your brain literally gets addicted to that sadness.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing. So just
Yes.
and then like you said too in your book, like celebrating the wins, like celebrating the successes, even if it's making it to an appointment that you wanted to cancel really badly, like celebrate that as like a win, like I did it. That could be
Mm-hmm.
also considered self-care, I guess, too, like loving
Yeah.
yourself in this time of hurt.
Yeah. Some days you do have to be your own cheerleader. So when you do have to, you know that, and you really do have to be that cheerleader for yourself because some days are going to be really tough. And Caitlin, one thing I didn't talk about, but you just mentioned something that it brought up to me is that death isn't just the loss of someone. Death can be, a loss of a career, can be the loss of a home, it can be the loss of a, marriage, separation. anything like that. And these triggers points come up the same with any grief. So any of these downward spiral things we talk about today, you can use those same things with any loss or any grief experience that you're feeling. Because like you said, you don't want to get stuck there. You can spend a day, but don't spend a year or a lifetime.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was just thinking before this, I was thinking about the seniors, you know, and how they're probably grieving this like senior year that they've been looking forward to, and like all the events and all the like cliche things that you do on your senior year. So yeah, like my heart goes to them, because I'm sure they're processing a lot of the same emotions of like losing a loved one, of like being angry, being resentful, being confused and hurt, and yeah, just like trying to process what is going on. Oh.
Yes, it's all grief. It's just different. And so how you deal with it is going to be a little different. It's not going to be as intense with some of those things as it is with others.
And then, so how can people find your book if they want to purchase your book or your journal? Is that online?
It's on my author page. So if you go to at Andrea Easton author, there is a shop there that you can purchase it from. The journal is $15.95 and the book is $19.95.
And I think those books make for really great gifts too, if you know someone who has lost a loved one. I mean, that's just like a perfect little, like, I love you, this book's here. If it sits on a shelf for a year, that's fine. But like when you need it, it might pop into your vision or into your mind. And it's a quick, easy read. I don't like reading, so I loved it because it was a quick and easy read. It was like relatable. And then the journal like really makes you think about like, okay, what emotions am I feeling with that trigger?
And the beauty of it is you can go back to either one, reread them. You can redo the journal, even if you have to use separate paper. But it's awesome because there's times when I look at my journal and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to read this part today. So I even do my own work.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's like you said, it's not a destination. It's this like ebb and flow of like, okay, now today we work on this. So do you have other books in the works, or what's your next? I know you public speak a lot.
I do have other books in the work. One is on parents, journaling parents. I really, my mom died in 2019, so just coming up on the 2nd anniversary of her death. And she truly, that woman in my life, she was my muse. She was, I just can't even use enough words to explain what she was to me. And so when I lost her, it was hard. Yeah, it was hard to have Michael die, and then, fortunate to have her until she was almost 94. But she was a big personality. She was a great person, and she lived a lot of life and gave us a lot of great things in life that we carry forward. So I'm very thankful to have had her for as long as I did.
That's amazing. So the next book is going to be on grieving a parent.
Yep, journaling a parent.
Okay. Wow.
And I had a completely different relationship with my father than I did with my mother. So it's truly 360 different. And so I do talk about that in there because I know that not everyone is close with both parents. So, someone's viewpoint might be the other way around. They're closer to their dad than their mom. And I know my siblings we're not all closest to my mother. Some of them were closer to my father. So yeah, but it's all relevant. It all helps. Yeah. So.
Wow, that's so exciting. Great. Well, I'm excited to hear more of your tips and tricks. And so people can follow your Facebook page, and you're very active on Instagram. And then you also have a subscription email, right?
Yes, I do a blog.
Things. I love it. The positive little news are so fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yes. And then we'll post all the links to order your book as well in the comments.
Okay.
If anybody has any last minute questions, I didn't see any questions here. Perfect. Awesome. And hopefully people can watch this on replay too if they weren't able to join. I know midday is kind of tricky sometimes if you're not working from home.
Yes. Yep. All right. Well, thank you, Caitlin, for hosting.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you technically are hosting. I'm just joining. Thank you.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Bye.